bears a patented Dobbs-Drome PowerShell, which may cause some home video decks to react unpredictably.
I'd love for somebody that makes sense of this for me. Maybe I'm missing something. So I'll probably rattle something off having to do with this in a minute. He's talking about another account, specifically this Mary Jazz. I'm just noticing I'm getting your network is unstable messages. It's just super. Replying to Be Free with Mary B 3.0. And if I click on it, the video is unavailable. Yeah?
I want to talk.
Nothing. When you find her in here, she commented. She said, "Thanks for commenting on this topic, social engineering sticker." And he said, "Social engineering sticker in triplicate. Social engineering sticker in triplicate." So, where is it? If I click on her profile, I just followed this, mind you, and I put a bookmark on here. So I am following the account. But if I click on this, the video is unavailable as it is set to friends only. Am I missing something? Is there a secret subcategory of super friends? You tell me. This is superficial granola slop for people who are fucking stupid. Functionally lost. I shit you not. There's one too many things I want to rattle off in here. In particular, I want you to look at the Jesus image, yeah, and the Satan image. Isis or Jesus, that crap, that's Buddha. That's, what was it? Dionysus, Bacchus, Anubis. What else have I not rattled off? It's got a bunch of fucking names. It's quite literally the messenger, and it's dashing up and down the fucking tree. Crudely speaking. Which means it's flip-flopping between these two states, as highlighted in this shitty hodgepodge. Yeah? Should come up, doesn't come up, didn't come up. In terms of quote-unquote Satan, that's motherfucking Earth. There's a lot more to that, and I'm not going to spoon-feed it to you, because people do not understand these things. It's important, what I just rattled off. Yes, you and I do return to, the clay or the mud or the earth, etc., to the rock beneath our feet. So in some ways you could look at that as Satanel or Saturnel. Crudely speaking, in some ways. And yeah, the sun, appears above this rock. In some ways, sure. But it's not just the sun that's doing this shit. In other words, this post promotes sun worship, for one, which is a polarizing outline, and should come up, doesn't come up, because people don't have a fucking clue what's going on. So this is the last thing you want to fucking hear, but it's absolutely true. Are you experiencing what I'm rattling off through a cell phone? That's the question I put to you. Because if that's the case, which it is, you are connected to Wi-Fi. Would you agree? What I'm driving at is you and I are the furthest fucking point currently from divinity. We are quite literally living in an artificial cage, if you will, of energy, which is cutting us off from the very thing that maintains us. That builds up this, fill in the fucking blank if you can. It has to do with the ether, it has to do with the living waters, it has to do with bits and pieces of what some of these granola kids are talking about, but don't have the first fucking clue. In other words, what they're leaving online is a goddamn disservice, but most people are going to eat this shit up and shit it out. And so it goes. Instead of looking into it, people are going to buy into that shit. What I just said is very fucking important, but you don't hear anybody talking about it. You hear some people say, yeah, 5G's bad, blah, blah, blah. Most people don't understand it's a net of energy. 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G still exist. It's a prison in a number of ways. And you and I are swimming through these, these powers of the air, however you want to think of it. And this is just one aspect. These granola kids are also going to paint a really muddy picture that's typically speaking rooted in philosophical granola horseshit. There's a number of things that you would probably need to think in terms of, and most people won't and aren't. And the only way that you would even touch on these things is if people such as myself spell them out for you, even though you could reason this stuff out on your own, which is why I'm being an asshole. I'm looking for people who can think for themselves and want to put in the time and reason things out on their own. To use that gray matter between your ears, because that's why it's there. You and I are in this mess today because people have not been doing that. And they're just jerking each other off online. That's what the circle jerk of the truth community is. It's a fucking problem. It's a big fucking problem. What I'm saying is we are cut off and we are further away from being what people would call enlightened, which is why you see the doublespeak being promoted online about people being woke, having knowledge supposedly, when they're in fact shopping around our master's propaganda, which are rabbit holes. Again, I said propaganda, adult fairy tales. Really, it's the paradigms and the different extensions of the paradigms to eliminating degrees, what you digest and what you're willing to repeat. Because you and I, again, we're surrounded by fucking retards. That's why things are bad. That's why things are exponentially getting worse. And we are not working towards a harmonious system. We are not working towards correcting this. We have not begun the journey. We're just constantly setting ourselves back and doing exactly what is intended of us or expected of us. This is an agenda. This is an old agenda that dates back to the 16th century. And you and I are catering to it. We are paving the way for it. That's what you see online. That's what people are talking about. It's the opposite of what you would hope would turn out or what you would hope would happen. I need to eat because obviously I'm trying to find the words tonight. Like I keep saying, you and I are surrounded by fucking retards that are mucking everything up. It's a simple way to put it, and it's absolutely true, but you would have to use the brain between your ears and challenge yourself to understand that to begin with. Then you would have to look into the information. And I'm talking about the true shit that reflects reality, which means you would have to build things up for yourself. And if you did that, you would see what I see. And if you saw what I saw, you'd take another step back probably, initially. And you'd look around and it would terrify you. It would keep you up at night. Then you look at all these kids who are just echoing the paradigms, the adult fairy tales, constantly setting us back more and more every single fucking day. Keep in mind, I've already backed into garbage or what have you. I can't back up anymore, you guys. Things are bad. Most people feel that, but they don't understand that they are contributing to it. Do our masters control the food supply, the air supply, the water supply, And I say air supply, I'm talking about where you and I are. If 5G exists and you're part of that, then they do moderate, the air supply. You can't leave a lot of this stuff online. But what I'm talking about, if you think about that, it does limit or inhibit the intake of oxygen, which our bodies need in a number of ways. Again, you could look into it. You could reason these things out. I'm not allowed to say certain things online having to do with this. You could look up the word non, N-O-N. You could look up radiation. And you could look up ionized. And you could slap them all together because it inhibits and negatively impacts you and I. Biological matter. Because I said that, this may be flagged. Because you and I live in patently fascist times. Because most people are catering to censorship. Now they call it canceling. Or shadow banning. Or a bunch of other flowery fucking shit that retards repeat. Which means they support censorship. A lot of times, these are the same idiots out there talking about being sovereign citizens, which is an oxymoron, and a number of other things. Because I keep saying that because you and I are surrounded by absolute morons. Take to heart that if you consider what I'm about to say, it should be the most profound thing you've probably heard in a very long time, and I'm just sitting on esoteric answers or answers to reality or how this shit ticks, the mechanics behind the curtain. But I don't have people who are capable of using their brain. A lot of you probably assume that you can. Chances are you aren't, because if we did have a talk, you would just talk at me about the paradigms. Because that's all you supposedly know. That's how far gone things are. Again, what I rattle off should be profound because you can use it as a tool. This is one of the numerous things that the research, what I've been building up, what I've rediscovered, speaks to. But again, you and I are surrounded by fucking retards. So I've stressed this numerous times because this has to do with Seminar 5. And this is me getting to the, this is going to be a profound moment. I don't know. We'll see if you guys even think that. You probably won't. Most people won't. All routine is ritual. Okay? But our masters are selling people the holographic universe and multiverse horse shit and a bunch of other nonsense that long ago was being paved, the way it was being paved a long time ago, going back to controlled opposition assets like Dolores Cannon. I think that's her name. Not Claiborne. I think it's Dolores Cannon. Just one of many. You also got Daryl, out there doing this shit, who's supposedly a medium for fucking horse shit. And I forgot his moniker that he uses having to do with the thing that talks through him. Bunch of bullshit. These assholes are paving the way for a one world religion, and most people are already buying into the initial steps. So there's a physicality to this thing, is part of the point. Just like you and I have a shell. But the only reason I'm experiencing this and you're experiencing this and blah, 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 blah is because we carry a light within. It's a binary system. And there's an infusion between these two, which is the messenger again, crudely speaking. And this has to do with the living waters and blah, blah, blah. The point to this is, all routine is ritual, and you have to think about the Trinity, quite literally. And if you're not, you're catering to one of the polarizing fucking outlines in place to mislead you and rewire how you think, which is to say, teach you not to think for yourself and recognize what you fucking experience. And if that's the case, you're not going to understand things. You're not going to pick up what I'm putting down. And the chances are good that that's the case. So I was going to make a separate video about this jazz. Bear in mind, I'm also fixing some oatmeal, trying to pull my shit together. It's a little chilly in the house and a bunch of other, human excuses, blah, 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 blah. Apparently I brought my toothbrush downstairs. All right, so it's going to rattle off something that should be profound, doesn't come up, but I don't know if I should. I was going to make another video about it. It has to do with what I've rediscovered. It's something that our masters do understand, and it's something that doesn't come up. It does speak to these things. It does have to do with spells. It does have to do with how shit works. And again, it doesn't fucking come up. So part of what I rediscovered and what I'm working with currently, how should I put it? It's a pattern behind all things. It is terribly intricate, but you can simplify these things, which, well, I'm not going to tell you that, but you can simplify these things. To work it out. Most people don't come anywhere close to it. The reason I'm rattling this off is I'd like you to think in terms of how our masters function and some of the things that they have gotten up to. And I want you to think in terms of syncopation. Pausing at certain times. You could think of syllables as well. Because if you were to drive the pattern behind how reality ticks, keep in mind, this is possible. This is possible. You could reverse engineer, so to speak, language as we understand it, what we still have available to us. And by doing so, you could appreciate a truer format in terms of how to speak these spells and manipulate the physical, quote unquote, this, that, and the other thing. and how that in turn sings to the light within, that ethereal or spiritual nature, if you will. This is a bigger thought. But these things don't come up because people don't have a first fucking clue. Nobody's ever pointed you in that direction and told you that you could reason this shit out. And if you were to do so, I mean, the options or what's the word that I'm looking for? I'm trying to say something is limitless. I need to put on some more clothes. It's cold in here. Most people will probably see this video and just, dismiss it. They'll assume what they will about me. That's usually what happens because I'm not flashing you granola horse shit and jerking you off. I'm not trying to lead you down the primrose path. Most people are going to blow fucking rainbows up your ass. That's what you find online, and they're repeating our master's granola bullshit. I mean, they're not... Here's an example. In recent times, our masters ceded something to the public sphere, having to do with the Isis. That Jesus that I was talking about? The messenger? That's Baphomet. It's AC/DC, and it's all that shit. Now, sometimes people will talk about that, but then they'll tell you that it's fucking Lucifer, which is absolutely incorrect. It is not the light bearer. It's not. There's a distinction between these things, and I've said it many times online. It is, in fact, Mercury. And I already rattled off Dionysus, Bacchus, Anubis, etc., etc. That would have come up many times over. People would definitively understand this if they simply took the time to reason this out, but people don't. Which is why the corrupted adult fairy tale that has been since ceded, no, I'm saying it poorly. In recent times, it has been ceded to the public sphere and people repeated it. Because they said, oh, but there's something about the morning star in the Bible, so that must be the Jesus. Based on what was left online, sanitized CIA narrative, so to speak. Even though you can reason this shit out. The moment you start trucking down the wrong fucking path of mixing up Satan L with Lucifer or Venus, and then mixing that up with Baphomet, which is, again, Isis, Bacchus, Dionysus, Anubis, all that shit. Buddha. You're not going to have the first fucking clue what you're talking about. And that's what you see in these videos, these granola videos that people rattle off. That's also why you see the polarizing sun worship that I already called attention to. If I remember to splice all these videos together and they fit in a 10-minute block in TikTok because our masters are doing away with fucking attention spans.
I want to talk about the comment that this video is attached to. So I couldn't obviously stitch it, so I used Mary here to attach it. You got some heavy hitters in your comment section, but let me see if I can wrap it up. You covered a lot, whether you know it or not, which is, it seems like as you do. You covered pretty much everything that there is. Now all there is to put it together is the understanding that Osiris is a moon. So they always talk about Ra. Ra's high noon, right? But Osiris, who's Osiris? Well, this is a moon. So it's the magnet, it's the duality, it's the North Pole, South Pole. Well, the North Pole is Ra. The South Pole is a moon. A moon is the hidden one. So Ra is our conscious mind, the physical. A moon is our subconscious mind, right? This is the spiritual. This is the black.
I really want you to kick this around. So if Mother Earth, crudely speaking, has to do with this shit, and that's what you and I are made from, would it in fact technically have to do with this? Or would it have to do with this? What do you think the light within, or what color do you think, or absence of color, or expression of color represents the light within? I want you to kick this around, because he's telling you that's within and that's without, if I'm not mistaken, based on what he rattled off in this video. I want you to think about this. These things are also paradoxical. Regardless of whatever you assume, regardless of what he said, this will sing to that, and that will sing to this, and vice versa. The end is the beginning is the end. This is how shit works. I can show you how these things work. I've never seen it online. I've never found it in a book. People don't know these things. It's not public knowledge. You and I are not supposed to understand how this shit works. which is also why corrupted outlines are shopped around online. I want you to think about this.
Up here, this is the white pole, the black pole, okay? So we have Osiris is a moon. A moon is the man. It is us. The thing that they're terrified of is us finding out about us. It's about us coming together and teaching other people. It's all about us. It's all about Earth. Everything is focused with the circle with the dot in it. That dot is us. Well, you have Mount Meru, what you see right next to me. That is a representation of this sword.
You and I are being misled, and people are contradicting themselves online because they don't look into things, they buy into them. So you might have heard about this jazz, Mount Meru, the World Mountain. It's got a bunch of names. And you might have seen some of these images, things like this, in particular. Yeah. But the irony is the same fellow who's rattling off this video, not me, the other fella, he's also promoting this, the Black Sun, which is a big proponent in flat earth horse shit. Don't forget, because people should know this, and people would have known this, and they would have appreciated this, the flat earth was ceded to the public sphere by our masters. It's an adult fairy tale. The heliocentric model was ceded to the public sphere by our masters after the flat earth. And the way our masters work, they knocked out the re-emergence of the first fucking outline again because people are fucking slow and will repeat anything. In other words, their tactics work because people are stupid. So he's shopping around this and the other one. Which is it? Can it be both? I want you to think about this. Most people haven't, apparently. And this is, as the words he used earlier, a heavy hitter. Fucking ridiculous.
You have our spine, exactly what she talked about. That spine in our sacrum, that the sacrum is the stone. The spine is the sword. So now we have a Ra and we have a moon. Conscious, subconscious, light, dark, physical, spiritual, salt, Mercury.
So if this asshole is going to bring up salt, you should probably think of things along these lines. Yeah? You should also think of sulfur and mercury. There's 3. Mind you, if you think of salt in particular, it's both a base and an acid. It depends on how much of what you have in your body, technically, the chemical makeup, and it will lean towards one of these, predominantly speaking. Keep in mind, we are looking for moderation, which is to say balance. The same applies to sulfur and mercury. I also want you to appreciate, usually it's salt and sulfur. The middle ground would be Mercury, the messenger again. But as always, what the fuck do I know?
Salt, well, there's 12 nodes that make up, the minerals. There's 12 in everything, right? It's that physical world. But it's the 13th element, which is you and I, that they're afraid of. And why is this? And how has this all come together? Is because this Christos oil, this chrism that drops within us, this is the Jesus. Christ, Christos, the chrism, when this drops and forms, and this is sent back up our spine, this is also Jacob's ladder. But the fire element that you speak of, well, this is what law is. Land, air, water. When we lack fire, we lack spiritual baptism. We lack spiritual enlightenment, illumination of the inner eye, which is all about getting rid of the eyes. The Isis is that's eyes. It's just the physical. To get rid of the physical, the perception, what you see, the emotions, is to go within, to close your eyes, to go within, be still, be quiet, be silent, be dark. That's the most important thing. But when this chrism rises and it goes up your sword or your spinal column, your sushumna, well, when it reaches your 5th chakra or your throat chakra, well, this is an anatomy called the pneumogastric nerve. Pneumogastric starts with a P and not an N. That's weird, right? Clues upon clues. Pneumogastric has 13 letters in it. When that oil reaches this nerve, This is when it's baptized through fire, and now this oil becomes a gas. And now we are what Buddha says, rising up into the air for enlightenment, because now it's this gas is rising up through our nasal passages. This is why there was the war on the nose and the everything else that we know about, because we know their plan, and we know that we are spiritual beings living a physical existence. When we wake up to the fact that we can attain this as spiritual enlightenment during this physical playground, that is when everything changes. That is when the system that they have ran and controlled us with collapses. Because we, the people, we, the collective, we, the few now, will soon be the mighty. And our swords, our spine, our tongue, our words will speak loudly.
As a reminder, Seminar 8 has to do with the most boring shit under the sun, superficial fluff, available to you, but people don't know these things. Politics, religion, blah, blah, blah. So, the Republic fell during the Civil War, which means it's no longer for the people, by the people. I'll repeat that. The Republic fell during the Civil War. To paint you a muddy picture, democracy and the Republic are two different things. Freedom and democracy are two different things. Democracy is a shade of fascism. And most people are too fucking stupid to understand that. The Republic fell during the Civil War and was finalized in 1871. This is when the Organic Act was put in place, which established the District of Columbia. The District of Columbia is the bottom of the trilateral city-states. Maybe I should do it this way. It's the bottom of the trilateral city-states. That's when America became a fucking corporation. One up above that is Roma. That's the Catholic Church. That's the Vatican. That's social control. And at the top of the food chain is the banking financial center. That's called the city, and it's found in the UK. I'm not referring to the royal family exclusively. I'm talking about something known as the city, otherwise known as the crown. That's the trilateral city-states. Each are symbolized by a fucking obelisk. This information is available to you. Also appreciate, by 1913, anybody who identified as a citizen became a debt slave when the Federal Reserve was established under the pretense of being both voluntary and temporary. It's still voluntary, but most assholes support it, which means you and I are fucked if we speak out against it and or don't fall into line. The same applies to car insurance and anything else you could think of in terms of rackets. By 1933, the Corporation of America, in all capital letters, was purposely bankrupted. It went bankrupt by design, intentionally. By 1934, Fort Knox no longer contained gold. This speaks to why one of the numerous stewards of the corporation, the District of Columbia, was assassinated for trying to reinstate a silver standard because we did not, in fact, have a gold standard because we no longer had gold in Fort Knox as of 1934. These things are important. You should know these things. You should know these things like the back of your hand. And anybody who ever waxes poetic about being free or enlightened or any of that other fucking nonsense is misleading you. They're trying to sail you down the river because they are dumb enough to repeat that shit. It is slop. Superficial shit that does not reflect reality. But wait, there's more. You and I aren't working towards a harmonious system, as I already whined about. We are not working towards the bettering of you and I or future generations, if you will. Things are not going to get better. They're going to get worse because people do not know what they're talking about. They are not working in a direction that is constructive. They don't have a foundation to stand on, which means they don't know what they're talking about, which means there's no way they could possibly be fucking organized to do the right thing. Most people aren't willing to do the right thing either because they are lulled to sleep by a system that has... they've drowned us in entertainment and a bunch of superficial fluff. And it's worse than ever before. Now there's a war on words like none other. And there are numerous other steps to this, most of which people don't appreciate. Most people haven't even considered people are not talking about, for fuck's sake, because they are not concerned with these things. If you're one of these kids out there using emojis, you're a fucking retard. Simple as that. You can change it. You should change it, because there's a war on words, and emojis are doing away with, attention spans and the ability to think abstractly, etc., etc. They are social engineering stickers. If you bought into any of those campaigns, if you've ever promoted censorship, otherwise dressed up as cancel culture or shadow banning, you're a fucking retard. If you've ever talked about Democrats versus Republicans, if you've ever told somebody that voting matters, if you've ever rattled off, taxes pay for roads, any of this shit, you're a fucking retard. You could change this. It's a temporary system. Pull your head out of your ass. That's what you need to take away from this message, above all else. Because people are just jerking each other off in the fucking truth community. Oh, by the way, truth is the daughter of Satanel or Saturnel. That would come up in the truth community if they knew what they were talking about. It's a polarizing outline. The flip side of that is Isis or Jesus. One has to do with the sacred feminine. One has to do with the sacred masculine. If you haven't heard me say it before, watch the Boondock Saints. Each of their tattoos have to do with what I just told you. And as always, what the fuck do I know?